Hi, we're sitting here with Linda Carr, owner and founder of the Lakefront Magazine. Hi, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi, Sarah. I'm great. How are you today?
Good, good. Hey, we're going to sit and chat about the Lakefront Magazine and the menu guide because the Lakefront Magazine is turning 35 years old this year in 2026. How does that make you feel?
Incredibly ancient. Or maybe not. Maybe, I'm only 40, so I just started really young.
Right, exactly. When you were six, right?
Exactly.
Well, walk us back to when you were 6 years old, and, you and your late husband, Skip, decided to start a community magazine. Tell us how that got started. Who came up with the idea?
Well, actually, we had lived in Ocean City before we moved to Deep Creek Lake. And Ocean City, of course, had several different weekly and monthly magazines geared for people that were visiting. And we just didn't really see that Deep Creek Lake had something like that. So we just saw an opportunity for a small business. My degree, I went to college at WVU for journalism. Skip had a degree in business. So it just kind of seemed a good match for our talents. And we loved Deep Creek Lake. We wanted to stay there. We wanted to live there and build a family there. And we were looking for a small business idea, and it just kind of came together for us.
Awesome. So, were you both or either of you entrepreneurs before the Lakefront Magazine?
Skip had been, he had been an insurance agent in New England, where he was from originally. He always had different odd jobs that he did, worked with his dad. His dad had small businesses, and he always worked for his dad over the years. So Skip definitely, I had always worked in sales, so I was kind of a self starter that way. So as I said, I think it was just a good match for our talents.
Yeah, yeah. So, when you identified the opportunity to say, "Hey, there's really no, would it be accurate to say tourist-based publication as far as a visitor's guide, or, were what kinda content did you think you would put together?"
Well, the promotion council was active then, and
Mm,
they had their yearly book, and I think the Republican did do something in the summer, much like what they're doing now. But we couldn't find really something that was updated with a calendar of events or things to do. A very good friend of mine who is our graphic designer now, Patrice. Her and her husband had started a little publication in Ocean City, and that was really kind of the template for what we were doing here.
hmm.
And Patrice really helped me. It helped me pick out my first computer and taught me layout design. I had the writing skills, but she really helped with how to set it up and finding a printer to print it. And of course, back then, I think I had two fonts on my computer, and everything was done by hand. It was literally cut and paste back then. So that was kind of an interesting part of it, and how much it's changed to what we do now. But yeah, it was just really, if you're visiting here, what is it you want to know? And for me, it was where to go out to eat, where to stay, where to shop, and what events were happening.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So what did that first issue look like? Was it kinda scrappy or polished or somewhere in between?
I think you would call it scrappy, definitely. I was the photographer, the writer, and the ad layout person. So definitely scrappy. But what was interesting, we had come up with the idea to do spotlight stories to more, for our advertisers, not that people would just be looking at an ad about them, but to read their story, which is absolutely became the favorite part of what we did. So the very first story we did was Schoolhouse Earth. One of the first people I had approached about advertising was Tom and Nancy Graham, who had founded Schoolhouse Earth, and Tom's daughter Kathy was working there. A lot of you might remember Kathy Clocker, and she was telling me their story and how they started the business, and it just clicked. And it was that's exactly what I want to do. So that our very first feature story was about Schoolhouse Earth and the love that Tom and Nancy had put into that business, which of course Stephen now keeps up, the new owner, Stephen Rodeheaver. And then my first business spotlight was well, it was Dominic's Pizzeria, but I had met Brenda McDonald early on when I had moved back to Deep Creek Lake. And pizza being my favorite food, that became one of my favorite restaurants. And so my very first spotlight story was Brenda at Dominic's Pizzeria. And she and I have been best friends ever since. And she has advertised with me ever since, as has Schoolhouse Earth. So it was kind of a nice tie in and something to give our readers a little more background into the places that they were frequenting.
Yeah, yeah, that's so awesome. I'm going to find that first edition and maybe put the first story here in the show notes, link it to it because I want to read it. I want to learn more about Schoolhouse Earth, and maybe it's time that we do another feature and update that story.
Ah, good idea.
So, tell us a little bit more about what it took to put together a print magazine back in 1991, right? You said it was cut and paste. How in the world did you do that? I grew up with technology, so it's kind of blowing my mind to think that truly cut and truly pasted things together.
I wish I had saved one of the sheets, but it was this long sheet, 4 pages to a sheet that they would photograph. And that our first printer was Dominion Post, and they were awesome to work with. We worked together over 30 years until they were purchased just a few years ago. But yeah, I would print things out, and I had, the glue roller and the blue editing pen, and would just paste things out. It got to the point where I could paste it by the page eventually, but there at the beginning, I was pasting ad by ad. And if I had a logo that needed to be shrunk or expanded, I took it to a place with a copy machine and manually, reproduce that. They would scan my photos for me. It was just amazing. It would sometimes, when the magazine got to be really big, 96 pages or more, it was an all afternoon thing with me sitting under a bright light, with a light board underneath, and cutting and literally gluing it and then pasting it. But it was a glue that could come off and on, so you could move it around. But I got very good at telling what was straight. I will say that I could really see what was straight and what was not.
Being able to eyeball the center of the page and things, I'm sure came in handy.
Exactly. I mean, it had a graph. The dummy sheets that we call them, they had a graph on them, but you still had to be able to see it. So yes, that was often, and I can remember in the middle of the summer living in Friendsville before we had air conditioner, it being quite a hot job too,
Mm.
sitting under the lights trying to figure that out.
I just really can't wrap my head around it. What was the production time? So you said it took maybe an afternoon. What was the turnaround time once you sent photos, or did you mail it this completed paperwork in? How did that work?
No, I had this big, it used to be an office supply store in Morgantown that I bought all of my supplies because that's the way a lot of us did it then. And I just had this large envelope that these dummy sheets fit into. And I would drive it over to the Dominion Post, and I would usually have to give them at least 5 days. So I would take it there on a Tuesday. Their production team would work on it, scan the photos, photograph it, and then it was always printed on a Saturday night. And then it would come back to me the following Monday to be delivered. And in the beginning, Skip would take his SUV over and fill it by hand, and then start delivering from there. So we didn't even have them delivered for many years. The first few years, we would drive over and pick them up, fill up our car, and then start delivering from there.
Wow. It sounds like a huge undertaking. Did you all have a kind of game plan in the back of your mind where you said, "We'll do this for 6 months and see if we can make it work," or, if it's not working after 6 months, that's it? Did you put any kind of timeline on it?
We did not. I mean, we had other jobs, and I think anyone that's
Mm.
had a business in Garrett County knows that often you have to have other backup jobs when you start your own business. Very few businesses make it right away. So we had other jobs. Skip was a property manager. I worked at a real estate company. Skip used to DJ the oldies on weekends. So we had another job for probably the first 5 or 6 years of the business. So we weren't relying on it. So we could slowly build it and grow it to the point where it did support our family. But it
Mhm.
took a while because one of our goals was always to make the advertising affordable. So we had very little overhead. We always worked out of our home. But we wanted everyone that had a business in Garrett County to have a place where they could spend at that time $30 or $40 a month and get an ad that was seen by a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, our original goal was visitors, but with Skip's column, it really became a place that locals loved and second homeowners. So we were a rare publication that we hit all three of those markets. So we became pretty popular fairly quickly.
Yeah, when did Skip's column come about? Was that original?
It was. It's kind of a funny story because when we were talking about this, I knew I could do the layout and the writing of the articles. And keep in mind, I had a baby, I had an infant at this time. Um, Caitlin is just a little bit older than the magazine. But he said to me, he said, I think I should write a column, and where I go around and talk to different owners, and I can put that every month. And my response was, nobody is going to care about that. Well, I was wrong. He was right. I mean, it was always one of the most popular features in the magazine, and people love to be mentioned. He was really good about getting not just the owners of the businesses, but the people that really, are the impetus behind a business's success. And that is often the people that work there. So he was always really good at showcasing them. And then, of course, children. I mean, we had hundreds of pictures of kids throughout the area. And I was always amazed at how he could go up to someone in a restaurant or at the fair or wherever and just say, hey, I'm Skip with the Lakefront. Can I take your picture and put it in next month's column? And everybody said yes. They were always really thrilled to appear in Skip's column.
Oh my gosh, and I interact with people. Just yesterday, I was talking to someone and she said, "Oh, my kids were in the lakefront in, 2008, and we still have a copy somewhere." So that legacy just continues on. Everyone has a connection to the lakefront, and definitely something we wanna continue. But I'm
Yes,
just
absolutely. I mean, it made people feel like they were part of it, and that was always our goal. It really was. The business owners to have a place to, as I said, to not have to spend a fortune to get an ad in, and then also for the community to just kind of see each other. Oh, that waitress I always see at Little Sandy. Oh, here's a picture of her. And
Mhm,
a little bit about her. And when after Skip passed away, and we started the unsung hero. I mean, that had been something Skip had wanted to do for years. He always felt that there were so many people in our community that weren't noticed, but they were working so hard behind the scenes making things happen, whether it was volunteering or picking up extra shifts at work. To him, those were the people that we really should be featuring. So
mhm.
that was done to preserve his legacy.
Yeah, yeah. Can you walk us through the main sections of the lakefront from it's kind of ebb and flow over the years, but what are the typical sections in the magazine?
Well, it's funny when we first started, Ruth Beitzel, who used to have the Point View Inn, um, she and Wendell, they were one of the first people we approached before we even started selling it. We talked to some business owners and said, if we were to do this, what would you like to see in it? And Ruth, who is one of the most amazing business women I've ever met, she had so many ideas, and we implemented those from day one, and they're still in there. Her first thing was you need a map in the center so we can show people, if they're looking for something, where it is very easy to find. She said we need a directory with phone numbers so that when someone says, well, where is this place, or what their number is, they can look at it very quickly. a directory that featured all the restaurants, the kind of food that they served, their hours open. And of course, as the years went by, it included their website and things like that. Now, a lot of that stuff is digital. I know that. But I remember talking to Jeannie Blamble at Brenda's Pizzeria a couple of years ago and saying, maybe we should take the map out. And she was absolutely not. I still use that map. People
Mhm.
still want to visually see where they're going. So Ruth had some great ideas and we kept them.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Now we mentioned Skip's column. Did he come up with the name out of the gate? Has it always been a skip around town?
Absolutely, from day one.
So
From day one.
if you could describe his humor in a sentence.
Oh my gosh. Off the wall. Sometimes it was an inside joke. I can remember he wrote a column and he said he had gone by the tourist trap back when Kathy Kessler owned the tourist trap, and she was washing the windows there, and he took a picture of her, and then he wrote in his column, that she had a new business washing windows. Well, of course, it's very tongue in cheek, and anyone that knows Kathy knew that she was not washing windows. She had so many calls, people wanting her to wash their windows. And we even had a call of this woman that was really irate because she read it in Skip's column and she felt, she, kind of felt like she had been had. But people that read it monthly understood that you really could not take anything seriously. But he subscribed to all sorts of little magazines and comic things. So he would get ideas from there. And he always had this little spiral notebook in his shirt pocket. And if something occurred to him or he had a conversation with somebody, he would write it down in his little notebook. And when he was writing his column, the desk would just be spread with all his little notes that he had taken all month to try and just stay current and keep up with all the ideas that he had.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know him well, but he did feature me in the Lakefront in 2019. I remember it vividly, and I also have a copy, of course. So that's very cool legacy. I love to hear the stories about Skip, and just his personality was very unique and very well loved.
Yeah, it was. And he always had a foil. His best friend, Gene, who Skip had met him in Maine and they remained friends through all of Skip's life. And so he would often talk about Gene from Mettybumps, Maine, and jokes that he had come up with that Gene was the foil. And I think people loved knowing that Gene was a real person. And when Gene would come to visit, everyone was so excited to meet him.
Yeah, that's so cool. Gene was a real person. It's funny that you say that because a lot of folks I've heard that too. Are these characters in these stories real? And it's funny. It's almost real life is stranger than fiction. I guess maybe.
True that. Well, in
So
Skip's world, anyway, yes.
so looking back, what are you most proud of in starting and running the lakefront for 35 years?
Well, I think we had a lot of competition over the years and things have certainly changed. I mean, it is a digital world these days, but I think I'm proud of the fact that we created something that to this day people still pick up and read and relate to. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that I've met over the years that said, oh my goodness, when we first moved here, that was my Bible. That was my go to. That's how I knew what music was playing on Friday night. That's how I knew what fundraiser was happening. So when I hear things like that, it just makes me so happy and proud. And I love that it is continuing. And I love that you are the one helping me to continue it because you have such great energy and ideas. But yeah, we survived. I think that's it. We just always survived through recessions and downturns and competition. We just would, put our head down and say, okay, how can we make it better? And our goal was always, how can we make it better for our readers and how can we make it better for our advertisers?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you neglected to mention the big C word, COVID, when we weren't allowed to pick up paper anything. How in the world, like, what went through your mind when COVID happened?
Oh my goodness. For 35 years, we only ever missed 1 month of publication,
Mm,
and that was April of 2020. During COVID, or actually, I guess it was May of 2020, and then we combined May and June.
mm.
So yeah, that was scary. I mean, because you literally could not do what the one thing we needed to do, which was to go out and see people and get ads, and then people to go visit these advertisers. So yeah, that was not the best of years. But our Chamber of Commerce was so great in letting all the small businesses know about what resources were available through the state and through the federal government. So we all got through it together. And, this community being the amazing place that it is, when our advertisers started getting money from the government and when things picked up, because Garrett County was one of the few places where people could go and socially distance. And we actually ended up having a pretty good year that year. All of the advertisers kept spending money with us. They shared what they had with the other local businesses. And to me, that's the greatest accomplishment. And it's not my accomplishment, it is Garrett County. I've never been in a place, lived in a place with everyone is so generous with each other. We have competition, but in the end, we're all friends and we all want each other to succeed. And that's pretty amazing.
Wow, that was very good mic drop moment there. Thank you. I do have a couple more questions, but we might end up cutting that off there. But I wanted to know what goes through your mind when you flip through issues now, old issues or current issues. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we were just chatting a little bit before this, and I think it's some version of happiness, fondness, good memories.
Well, absolutely. And again, I just think it's a testament to the people here. The businesses, they weren't just clients, they weren't just advertisers. They are our friends.
Hmm.
So many people that we met over the years doing this became really great friends. I mean, I had so many of our people that started as advertisers that came to my daughter's wedding, to came to her graduation party. It just the community grew to include our own personal community, and I think that's pretty wonderful. Uh, but yeah, certainly, I love looking at pictures of kids back in the day. You know, I think of Bill Maher's kids, his boys. They loved Skip so much, and Skip would put their picture in. And now I have their graduation pictures hanging on my bulletin board at my office. I just watched them grow up, and I love that. And the spotlight stories were always my favorite because how great is that to hear. Owning a business for many people is a dream, and
Hmm.
I got to sit down with all of these owners, all of these people who made their dream come true. They didn't all last, but they maybe started over and did something else. But that was, to me, the greatest gift, was just hearing all of these people and how they made their dream come true, thinking of a business idea that no one had thought of for this area before.
Wow. I might be tearing up a little bit because it's so true. I mean, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into owning a business, and there's a lot of speed bumps along the way, but to have some little part in that is pretty cool.
It really, really is. And that's technology is wonderful. And, it was really nice to be able to email people about, how do you want your ad this month instead of going to see them all. But at one point I knew every advertiser. I had met them, I had sat down with them. It was only till recent years that now it's like, oh, well, we email every month, but I had never really seen your face before. And while that's convenient, it does take away a little bit of that one on one
Mhm.
presence. So I always try, even if I've not met them, to try and do a story about them so we can sit down and have that conversation about how they started and what their goals are.
Yeah, yeah, that's an important piece of that community connection for sure. So, looking forward, now I'm involved, for better or worse. I'm a managing editor now, and want to hear from you. What do you think? What do you want people to feel when they pick up the lakefront? What do you think the lakefront's future is moving forward?
Well, I think that is in your hands, and I know they're very capable hands. You have brought to fruition things that I had only dreamt about wanting to do. My lack of technological skills aside, you have brought them all to life. But what I want is that uh, we're all connected to our computer. We all have a laptop, we all have a phone, we all, I think we get away from just sitting down and leafing through a magazine. And there will be some people that will never do that, but I think there's still something to be said about that. Picking up, having that in your hand, holding it, sitting down at a restaurant and just thumbing through a magazine, thumbing through something and saying, oh, and highlighting something that you're interested in. And you can
Mhm.
always follow up online. And of course, the lakefront is available online,
Mhm.
and that's nice for the people that don't live here anymore, that they can always look at it online. But I think I want that legacy to continue, that it just is always a voice, one voice, not the voice, but one voice of Deep Creek Lake and Garrett County, Maryland.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the last few minutes talking about the Lakefront Magazine. Is there anything else we need to chat about? Anything else you would like to say?
Just a huge thank you to everyone, to all of our readers, to all of our advertisers, to all of our friends that have made the last 35 years so special. I am so appreciative, and thank you, Sarah. I'm excited to see where we go in the next 35 years.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.